give a warm welcome to Dana Plato.
The history of child stars in Hollywood is rife with tragic events, lost innocence, and early deaths. Due to the events that followed in their lives, many child stars, including Linda Blair, Corey Feldman, Jonathan Brandis, and even Todd Bridges, have been called the curse of black and white television. But the story of Dana Plato is one of the most heartbreaking of these stories. So what really happened to her? Did she really die? In what ways have secrets been revealed, and who was involved? Join us as we explore the heartbreaking information that has emerged regarding Dana Plato's passing. Let's take a look back at the life Dana Plato led, a life that ultimately led to her gruesome death, before we uncover the heartbreaking truth behind her passing. And if you are a fan of Dana Plato like me, please leave a D in the comment section below to let me know. Now let's get to the main topic: early life. In Maywood, California, on November 7, 1964, Dana Michelle Plato made her spectacular debut into the world. Let's take a trip down memory lane and go back in time to that day. It is possible that you might believe that being born in the state of California would pave the way for a life filled with glitz and glamour. But from the very beginning, Dana's journey took a different path than it had anticipated. During the time when Dana Strain made her spectacular debut into the world, her mother, Linda Strain, was a young woman who was just 17 years old and living alone. When Dana was born, Linda was not only a teen mother by herself, but she was also already responsible for the upbringing of a child who was 18 months old. Linda must have had a significant obstacle when she was so young and had to juggle the responsibilities of two little children. Dana had to battle tooth and nail for her mother's affection and attention, and it is not surprising that she had to do so. Also, just when you thought things couldn't possibly get any crazier, Dana, who was only 7 months old at the time, was put up for adoption by her mother, who was so completely overwhelmed. Dean and Florine Plato, her new parents, gave her a new last name and a new residence in the San Fernando Valley. Her new parents also gave her a new name. On the other hand, let's not sugarcoat things. Young Dana's life was going to take many more unexpected turns, and her new parents were not even close to being perfect. The divorce of her adopted parents occurred when she was just 3 years old, just as she was beginning to feel comfortable in her new circumstances. Her situation was once again one in which she was under the care of a single parent. However, this time it was not a case of insufficient attention, but rather an instance of excessive attentiveness. So, as you can see, Florine had very high hopes for Dana. She was not content with only being a mother who loved her children. She viewed Dana as the key to her success and financial success. When Florine was with Dana, it seemed as though she was more of a project than a child. The preparation for stardom that Dana received began at a young age. Florine was unrelenting in her efforts to fulfill her dream of making Dana a famous actress. Over the course of time, Dana was able to make an appearance in more than 250 television ads, which was the result of innumerable auditions and countless hours of hard work. On the other hand, did that satisfy Florine? No. Her sights were focused on the big screen during this time. Having said that, let us take a brief pause to reflect on this matter. What are the effects of early celebrity on children? During the time that the majority of children her age were frolicking in the gardens and playing with toys, Dana was coping with the challenging realm of the entertainment industry. Putting children who have an innate appeal in front of the camera and using them as a blank check at such a young age is a sad and unfortunate practice. The question that needs to be asked, however, is regardless of all the glitz and excitement, what type of interior anguish and challenges do these children experience as a result of their early fame? Early acting career. When Dana Plato was only 13 years old, she rose to fame like a shooting star due to her incredible talent. Almost overnight, she rose to prominence as one of the most well-known personalities in the world of television acting. On the other hand, as the old adage goes, everything that goes up must eventually come down. The fall of Plato was exactly as precipitous as his fall. The television career of Plato got off to a rousing start when she was cast in roles in Exorcist II, The Heretic, and Return to Boggy Creek. We regret to inform you that both films earned reviews that were equally terrible. It appeared that her professional life was getting off to a rough start. On the other hand, her fortunes turned when she was cast in the film California Suite, which was a blockbuster hit that garnered a lot of nominations and accolades. Things were beginning to look good, but she was completely unaware that her life was about to undergo a significant transformation. Then came the audition for The Gong Show, which everyone will never forget. Imagine being ignored on a national television program. How humiliating is that? On the other hand, there is a silver lining to this tale. An astute television producer took notice of Plato as she was performing her unsuccessful cheerleading act, and he offered her a part in a short-lived television show called Diff'rent Strokes. This was the beginning of her trip to Diff'rent Strokes, where she was competing for one of the leads to be cast in the role. However, life is never so straightforward, is it? Meanwhile, Plato was split between pursuing a berth on the United States Olympic figure skating team or going headfirst into acting. He was conflicted between the two options. It was a challenging choice for a young person to make. In the end, she decided to pursue a career in acting. But one can't help but wonder whether she made the decision on her own, or whether she felt coerced into making the decision. The film Diff'rent Strokes became an enormous success, which brought its young actors, such as Plato, Gary Coleman, and Todd Bridges, to the forefront of the entertainment industry. Plato, on the other hand, was already dealing with another obstacle behind the scenes, and that was her adopted father, Dean. The divorce of Plato's adoptive parents had caused Dean to be missing from her life for a significant amount of time. However, after she achieved fame, he suddenly reappeared and even had the guts to file a lawsuit against her in order to receive funding. Maybe he felt that he was entitled to a portion of her newly acquired wealth because he had adopted her. To Plato's good fortune, his attempt to file a lawsuit against her was unsuccessful. But the most difficult obstacles had not yet materialized. When the television show Diff'rent Strokes first aired in November 1978, Plato was just 14 years old. She rapidly became a teen superstar, appearing on popular shows such as The Facts of Life, Hello, Larry, and even Chips. Her co-stars were not the only ones who contributed to her success, not to mention the fact that she was nominated for 2 Young Artist Awards due to the outstanding performances she performed. Also, let's not overlook the payday, shall we? There was a time when Plato was making more than $100,000 for each episode of the show. When Plato was working on the show, what was his life like behind the scenes, especially considering all the attention and money he received? There are several strokes. The occurrence of landing the character of Kimberly Drummond appeared to be a dream come true. However, that fame and money would come with a significant cost attached to it. It was a lot of pressure to maintain their show at the top of the charts because they were living in a world where they were still children but earning more than their parents. And so, just like a great number of other child stars before them, they turned to the potentially lethal combination of alcohol and substance abuse. By doing so, they were able to free themselves from the crushing expectations that were placed on their shoulders at such a tender age. Plato had an especially difficult time during this period, as he would sometimes spend up to 5 hours just attempting to get himself sober enough to enter the workforce. Was this the reason that Plato was terminated from his position on the show? Yes, but no. It was a whole chain of occurrences that left everyone's jaws agape and their mouths hanging open. First of all, just try to picture the shock that the young starlet experienced when she sealed the knot with rock and roll musician Lanny Lambert when she was only 18 years old. With that being said, you would think that the producers of Diff'rent Strokes would be overjoyed for their superstar, wouldn't you? It's not true. They probably had a lot of sweat on their faces because they were worried about what the fans would think. Getting married at a young age while continuing to play the cherished role of Kimberly Drummond? Undoubtedly not the impression that they were trying to convey. Plato, however, had another announcement to make. She has a pregnancy. She was waiting for a small bundle of happiness to arrive. However, a teenage girl who is pregnant on a show such as Diff'rent Strokes. It's true that the script they had in mind didn't quite work perfectly with that. With that being said, It did not take them very long to settle on a conclusion. It was necessary for Dana to leave. It was impossible for them to have her character cope with the issue of teen pregnancy on top of all the other racial concerns that they were already addressing. After that, Kimberly Drummond was removed from the show without any more explanation. In the event that you have been curious about the reason why her character was sent to boarding school in the upstate region of New York, below is the explanation. Now, however, things begin to take an unexpected turn. After being let off from her job, you would think that Dana would be angry, right? To everyone's surprise, she wasn't. She divulged some information throughout the course of a heart-to-heart talk that she had with her on-screen father, Conrad Bain, regarding the entire scenario. Surprisingly, she had actually planned the pregnancy and was quite content with the outcome of the situation. This raises the question, did she ever feel content with her acting career? She assured Conrad that she would never again be one of the only people in the world after she had her child. Following the arrival of her son Tyler into the world, she was disappointed to discover that things did not go according to her expectations. Diff'rent Strokes, a family sitcom that was once cherished by many, came to an end in the year 1986, leaving behind a legacy that has been anything but sunny for the young actors who appeared on the show. Following the conclusion of the show, let's have a look at what transpired with the three individuals. The actor who played Willis, Todd Bridges, had a difficult experience with significant drug usage and legal difficulties. He was involved in 2 trials for attempted murder and spent time in jail for possession of drugs. Gary Coleman, who played Arnold, struggled with health concerns and found it difficult to control his rage, which led to him being charged with many counts of assault. Dana Plato, who left the show in order to pursue her love life and motherhood, is the last, but certainly not the least of our choices. So, how did things work out in the end? Well, let's just say that the conclusion was not exactly a joyful one. A love story with a tragic ending. In the month of December in 1983, Plato made a courageous decision by moving in with her boyfriend, Lanny Lambert, who was a rock star. After a year had passed, the 2 people who had been in love decided to get married. Their love story was enriched by the birth of their son, Tyler Edward Lambert, who was a blessing to them. In addition, everything was flawless. Nevertheless, as the proverb says, life is full of unexpected events. It was a difficult year for Plato, and the year 1988 was no exception. In the span of only 1 week, she was torn apart by the heartbreaking loss of 2 people who were dear to her. Not only was it difficult to deal with, but her marriage was also breaking apart at the same time. In an instant, Plato found himself in a sea of loss. The absence of a mother, a husband, and a job. On the other hand, she did have her son, you know? However, this won't last for very long. From the beginning of his life, Plato had the belief that having a kid meant never being alone. On the other hand, as luck would have it, she was about to be shown to be incorrect. The ruling that the judge made was quite upsetting because it was based on her separation from her husband, Lambert. Tyler, her kid, would be moving in with his father during this time. It was a lot of food for thought to take in. Plato, however, was aware that she was not in the appropriate mental state to be a good mother at that particular moment. She courageously admitted that her drinking would only be detrimental to her kid, and she made the terrible decision to send him away for his own sake in order to ensure his own future health and happiness. Plato discovered that she was in a genuinely lonely position after she had lost custody of her child and was only able to maintain visitation rights. In spite of this, everyone continued wondering, what happened to all of her money? Because of the emotional turmoil that was going on. Before anything else, there was the issue of her beloved mother having passed away. The experience of grief has a peculiar way of clouding one's judgment, doesn't it? Furthermore, as if that were not enough, she was also forced to deal with the unpleasant experience of breaking up with the person she had been romantically involved with. In an effort to alleviate her burden and concentrate on putting the parts back together, Plato did what any reasonable person would do in this situation. She delegated the management of her financial matters to an accountant and gave up control. At the time, it appeared to be the ideal solution to the problem, After all, who wouldn't want to relieve themselves of the stress caused by financial concerns and instead concentrate on getting better? However, Plato's trust was mistaken to a great extent. The fact that her accountant had a few tricks up his sleeve, and not the good sort, was completely unknown to her. It was before she knew it that he had disappeared into thin air, taking with him a sizable portion of the money that she had worked so hard to achieve. Oh no! Suddenly, it vanished without a trace. Despite this, she picked herself up, gathered her composure, and set out to begin the process of rebuilding from the ground up. The initial objective was to locate a job, but she ended up finding something else instead. It's love. Her initial engagement to the director, Fred Potts, did not continue to hold up over the course of time. In the same year, 1996, she tied the knot with producer and actor Scott Adkins, who is also known by his stage name, Scotty Gelt. However, the marriage was only dissolved after it had barely lasted for 1 month. Plato, on the other hand, was not yet prepared to give up on love, even though looking back, it is possible that she should have done so instead. The next person in line was Robert Menchaca, who was her manager. Having gotten engaged, they went to Navarre, Florida, where they set up camp in a Winnebago camper that was less than elegant. On the other hand, this romance did not last either. Clearly, she was in need of financial assistance at this point. However, was she willing to go to any lengths in order to obtain it? Indeed. Plato's misguided pursuit. It is said that when times are dire, extreme measures are necessary. When it comes to Plato, however, it appears that she took that advice a little too seriously, which ultimately led to her getting into problems. A difficult period had occurred in Plato's professional life long before she decided to become a mother. Following a series of strokes that resulted in her termination from her acting career, she made an effort to revive her career, only to discover that it was more difficult than she had thought. She had a difficult time landing big roles or the kind of income she was accustomed to, despite the fact that she had appeared as a guest on shows such as The Love Boat and Growing Pains. Consequently, in a condition of desperation, Plato resorted to strategies that were not traditional. When it came to making ends meet, she was willing to rely on anything. Can you guess where she went for the first time? It is the office of a plastic surgeon. With the belief that breast implants would assist her in shedding her image as a child star and open doors to more serious jobs, she was willing to do virtually everything in order to reclaim her position at the top of the entertainment industry. What do you think her next destination was? In the magazine Playboy. The next phase in her process to rename herself was this. It was of the utmost importance to her that she put some distance between herself and her character of being Diff'rent Strokes. Because of this, she decided to leave behind her benign television image and appear for a full photo spread in an effort to launch a career that is more focused on adult content. However, while she eagerly expected the influx of genuine proposals to come in, she was surprised to find that the reality was far different from what she had hoped for. Plato patiently awaited the arrival of those lucrative film offers and waited for his turn. Moreover, when they did finally do it, let's just say that they weren't exactly deserving of an Academy Award. In the film Prime Suspect, which was released in 1989, she revealed everything once more. There was also the Bikini Beach race, which took place in 1992. In this race, she competed while wearing nothing but lingerie while she was riding about in a bedmobile. To make it even more difficult, her film roles were a complete and utter failure. With regard to her career in television, she was only able to appear in sensational stories and tabloid gossip because of her habits. She did not command meaningful roles and did not receive critical acclaim. A prime example is the events that took place in the year 1990. The issue of child actors was going to be the subject of an episode of the Sally Jessy Raphael show that was going to be nothing short of explosive. Plato was one of the guests, and she was preparing to set the record, write about her traumatic history with drugs while she was on stage. The objectives of Plato appeared to be admirable at first glance. Her goal was to make it known to the public that she had made a clean and sober decision. However, as soon as the concert began, it became very evident that things were not as they appeared to be. Plato's actions were seen by Paul Peterson, who is a person who is an ardent champion for the rights of young actors. As soon as she emerged from the restroom, he couldn't help but notice something that could be considered suspicious, a certain white powder that was on her nose. One cannot help but question why the falsehood was told at this point. In order to gain acceptability, or was there something more involved? It is still unclear what the truth is. However, the following move that Plato made was just as jaw-dropping. A criminal effort was made. According to Plato, Dana's life has been nothing short of a roller coaster ride, with more downs than ups that she has experienced. Her husband, her mother, her child, and her riches were all taken away from her within a short period of time, and this was the beginning of everything. To suggest that Plato was not exactly in her right mind when she made the decision to engage in yet another desperate act is a safe assumption to make. In the year 1991, Plato entered a video store with the kind of determination that is typically reserved for someone who is on a mission to save the world. Nevertheless, her mission was just a little bit less honorable. She demanded all of the money from the unfortunate cashier who had the misfortune of being in the wrong location at the wrong time. She was holding a pellet pistol at the moment. Although it was understandable that the cashier was afraid, she cooperated with Plato's requests. Plato then made her big exit from the store, holding the ill-gotten profits in her hands as she walked out of the establishment. Do you have any idea how much she stole? $164 is all that is required. Regrettably, she was completely unaware that her not very astute move would soon become a sensation that would garner a lot of attention. "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Diff'rent Strokes," the shopkeeper yelled as she dialed 911 without wasting any time. There was no hesitation on her part. It would appear that Plato failed to take into account the possibility that a criminal genius would not be best concealed by a distinctive appearance. It is safe to conclude that her time spent functioning as a criminal was quite brief. Within the span of 15 minutes following the theft, Plato experienced a change of heart, or perhaps a fleeting glimpse of clarity, and made the decision to do something that was unthinkable. In order to return the money that she had stolen, she went back to the location where the crime had occurred. On the other hand, that is not exactly what you would anticipate from a hardened criminal who is on the run, is it? So, it is not clear if she suddenly came to the realization that she was acting in an inappropriate manner, or whether she simply was unable to bear the shame of her acts. Without a doubt, she returned the money that had been stolen. On the other hand, it goes without saying that the authorities were ready for her when she made her amazing comeback. However, at least she would have had the decency to return on her own accord. However, not everyone had the same interpretation of the activities that she took. The video shop clerk, Heather Daly, had a different perspective on the entire issue than the rest of the employees. By her own account, Plato did not go back to the location where the crime was committed in order to surrender herself in. It was nothing more than her returning to recover something that she had dropped. As the tale goes, after leaving the video store, Plato made the decision to take an impromptu climb over a wall, only to discover that she had dropped her spectacles in the act of climbing over the wall. Plato was allegedly caught by Daly when she returned to retrieve the item that she had misplaced. Without regard to the circumstances surrounding her return, Plato found herself in detention, where she was forced to confront the brutal reality of her conduct. She was incarcerated by alone in a cell, and there was no one who could rescue her. It would appear that Plato had absolutely no friends left somewhere in the globe. To save the day, however, Mr. Las Vegas himself, Wayne Newton, appeared out of nowhere and came to the rescue. Despite the fact that he did not even know her, he posted her bail of $13,000, demonstrating that assistance may come from the most unexpected of places. Fortunately, the judge who presided over the trial showed mercy and condemned Plato to only 5 years in prison, all of which were served on probation. This may have been because the judge recognized the desperate nature of the situation. Nevertheless, this occurrence was not overlooked by anyone. The truth is that it was blown out of proportion. A nationwide discussion regarding the challenges that child stars face in their later lives was generated as a result of the tragedy. On the other hand, Despite the gravity of the situation, a local radio show in Las Vegas managed to inject a little bit of humor into the mix. Plato's run-in with the law was the subject of a popular song that was produced by the radio show. Sung to the tune of "The Girl from Ipanema," the song was about a girl who had different strokes robbing a video store. The song was described as having a storyline. The song skyrocketed in popularity, which caused Plato a tremendous deal of distress. That someone would make fun of her legal issues was something that infuriated her to no end. On the other hand, everything shifted before her very eyes. One last opportunity to win redemption. The name Plato Dana, which had formerly been associated with the possibility of achieving fame, found herself in a string of unfavorable circumstances. Nevertheless, her circumstances with the radio station underwent a rapid shift. They attempted to get in touch with her on a fateful day. This time, it was not with the intention of making her feel unhappy or making fun of her. It was for a different purpose that they arrived. I sincerely apologize. However, rather than simply expressing regret, they did something that was shockingly charitable. An opportunity to work as a celebrity reporter was presented to her. This appeared to be an opportunity for redemption. But as we are all aware, life is rarely as straightforward as that. All was not as it seemed. Further, Plato was unable to handle the challenge. It was necessary for Plato to approach famous people with some quite humiliating questions. It is well knowledge that Plato possesses a noble character. To put it another way, it was really difficult to do this unpleasant chore. As a result of what can only be described as a moment of brutal honesty, the radio producer informed her that she was simply too kind for the role, and she was terminated from her position. After that, in the next year, Plato made a remarkable debut by being one of the first celebrities to feature in a video game. It was even possible for Night Trap to include Plato and a bunch of females who were enjoying a sleepover in a dangerous residence. Doesn't that sound like some harmless fun? Sadly, the game was brought to the attention of the congressional hearing in the United States, which resulted in its immediate termination. One more time, just when things seemed like they couldn't possibly get much worse, Plato found herself in legal distress. Forgery of a prescription for anxiety medication was the offense that was committed this time. At this particular moment, the judge was not in a very lenient mood. Therefore, she was sentenced to 30 days in prison for violating the terms of her probation. After being imprisoned for a period of time, Plato experienced a profound realization. Had she not been apprehended, it might have been the most unfortunate thing that could have happened to her. A drug overdose was a possibility that was very much present. However, the roller coaster ride of tragedy had not yet come to an end. Plato performed something that was unimaginable in the 1990s. A customer service position at a dry cleaning shop was the one she decided to take. Imagine the shock that would be felt by consumers when they saw a man who had previously appeared on television while they were picking up their newly laundered garments. Plato was very down to earth, according to testimonies from customers, despite the fact that she was a celebrity. The saying goes that everything that is excellent must eventually come to an end. After working in the dry cleaning industry for a while, Plato made a decision about her professional life that was pretty unexpected. 1997 was the year in question. In addition, Plato was experiencing difficulties with his finances. As a result, she had an intense need to resume her career in acting. She was fortunate enough to receive a producer who approached her with a fairly unusual offer. In addition, she did not show any reluctance in responding positively. This was not a typical movie at all. The film featured a narrative about a trio and was titled Diff'rent Strokes. It was intended for adults. But did she give a damn? Apparently, she did not. Her attention was focused on acquiring the money. During the year that followed, in 1998, Plato made an appearance in the film Desperation Boulevard, playing the role of herself. The plot of the film is around a veteran child actress who is attempting to resurrect her career in the entertainment industry. Without a doubt, it was about her. Once more, however, she did not care. However, it is possible that she led us to believe that she did not, as it requires either an extraordinary amount of bravery or genuine desperation to expose one's narrative in such a manner. And just when you thought things couldn't possibly get much more dramatic, Jennifer Wedge Bay, who had previously lived with Plato, made a claim that totally blew your mind. Plato was still under the influence of drugs. Plato swiftly took matters into her own hands and made an appearance on the radio show of shock jock Howard Stern in order to rectify the situation. Is it a prudent course of action? The truth about Plato's death. During her interview with Stern, Plato didn't hold back. She spilled the tea on her financial woes, her battles with addiction, and even claimed to have been sober for a decade. But what Plato didn't expect to find out was that her former roommate had to say she dropped a bombshell that left even Stern himself speechless. Not only did she accuse Plato of still being hooked on drugs, but she also made a jaw-dropping claim about their living arrangements. According to Wedge Bay, there was something more scandalous going on between them. She alleged that Plato had not only taken money from her, but that they were also more than just roommates. They were lovers. As if things couldn't get any more dramatic. Stern's listeners chimed in during the call-in segment, hurling insults and questioning Plato's sobriety. It was a full-blown media circus, and Plato found herself at the center of it all. Now, was she truly sober? What really went on between her and her roommate? The answers may never fully come to light, but one thing's for sure. Plato's final chapter was a wild ride filled with shocking twists and turns. What really stung Plato was the public's disbelief in her sobriety. Determined to prove herself, she made a bold move, a test. She offered to take a drug test right then and there, even allowing Stern to cut a piece of her hair for the process. It was a dramatic gesture meant to silence the doubters once and for all. But what most people didn't see was that as soon as the interview ended, Plato collected her hair from Stern, and then she dropped another shocking confession. She was on pain medication for a wisdom tooth extraction months earlier. It was a sobering moment for everyone involved, as it became clear that Plato had fallen back into old habits. The facade of sobriety had crumbled, leaving Plato feeling more humiliated than ever. Following the disastrous interview and subsequent trip with her fiancé Menchaca, the truth of what really happened on the day Plato passed away has been the subject of much debate. Initially, it was believed that Plato's death was an accident. However, a closer examination by a medical examiner revealed a different story. The high levels of substances found in her system, including fatal concentrations of soma and a generic form of lortab, pointed to a darker truth. Coupled with her history of suicidal tendencies, it became clear that her demise was not accidental, but a deliberate act. The absence of a suicide note only added to the mystery surrounding her death. With no clear explanation from Plato herself, the true reasons behind her tragic decision remain a mystery. While some pointed fingers at those who were close to Plato, including her fiancé and even talk show host Howard Stern, the truth remains elusive. Betty Bridges, mother of Plato's co-star Todd Bridges, suggested that the pressure on Stern's show and public scrutiny may have driven Plato back to drugs. Stern, however, denied any responsibility and even went as far as to claim that Plato had enjoyed herself on his show. The conflicting accounts only served to further cloud the truth behind Plato's final days, but the repercussions of her untimely passing extended beyond her own life. Her son, Tyler Lambert, who was just 14 at the time, was deeply affected by the loss of his mother. Despite growing up mostly with his paternal grandmother, the weight of his mother's tragic end took its toll. Unfortunately, Tyler himself succumbed to the same fate as his mother, tragically ending his own life on the eve of the 11th anniversary of her death. He told his friends and family he wanted to be alone with his mother then. The reality behind Dana Plato's death may never be fully known. What is evident, however, is the devastating impact it had on those she left behind. The truth, it seems, is far more complex and tragic than we all thought. To this day, Dana Plato's story continues to spark vital discussions about the immense pressures of fame, the complexities of mental health struggles, and the pervasive issue of addiction. Many wonder whether her heartbreaking downward spiral could have been prevented had she received the proper support and care at critical moments. Her life, marked by both remarkable achievements and profound challenges, serves as a cautionary tale about the harsh realities that often lie behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. It raises essential questions about the responsibilities of those around her, friends, family, and the media, in recognizing and addressing such struggles. Plato's tragic journey underscores the idea that fame can come at a devastating cost if mental health is neglected, revealing the often hidden battles faced by those in the public eye. Her untimely death remains a haunting symbol of how easily public figures can fall through the cracks despite their visibility, and emphasizes the urgent need for compassion and support for individuals grappling with these issues. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our channel. For a more thrilling story, click now on the next video that pops up on your screen.